I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please silence all your cell phones and electronic devices. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lisa, would you call the roll, please?
Sure. Jerry Valentine?
Here.
Darcy Kaplan? Here. Jenny Slows? Angela Brown? Here. Keith Gosha?
Here.
Jasper DeChristopher?
Here.
Tara Shields?
Okay, with that, I want everybody to know this is being played on Facebook right now, and it's being recorded, so at a later date, if you miss something, you can go back and review it on the Berlin website, I believe. So with that, I'm going to read the adopted policy. The adopted policy of the Berlin Township Zoning Commission is that each applicant or agenda item will be given 10 minutes or at the discretion of the chairperson to make a formal presentation. The chair will allow questions from the commission members in order to provide a timely and orderly discussion of the business for consideration. Finally, the audience will then be given up to 3 minutes or at the discretion of the chairperson for each speaker to respond. The chairperson may limit repetitive debate, and all comments from the audience must be addressed to the chairperson. Lisa, would you verify the meeting was advertised?
Sure. In the June 14th, 2023 Delaware Gazette.
Thank you. And we don't have them in front of us. Kathy didn't get them printed off, but the approval of the BZC meeting minutes from June 13th. Do I have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you.
June 13th, as is.
Yes.
Mr. DeChristopher?
Yes.
Ms. Brown? Yes. Ms. Kaplan? Yes. Mr. Gosha?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes. Okay, with that done, our first item is BBP 23-002, filed by Metro Development, 470 Old Worthington, Suite 100, Westerville, Ohio, 43082. The applicant is requesting an administrative review for a residential hotel development, parcel number 418-140-01-005-000, plus or minus 6.369 acres from planned commercial district to Berlin commercial overlay using the North American Industry Classification System, NAICS code 7211110, SR State Route 37 East, Sunbury, Ohio, 43074. Todd, it's up to you.
Good evening, I'm Todd Ferris of Ferris Planning and Design. My address is 4876 Cemetery Road, and I'm here with Joe Thomas of Metro Development. Tonight we're going to present to you this project and some of the revisions that we made based on feedback from your architecture review board. Joe is passing out the presentation that contains the original presentation plus the revisions that were made based off of, again, those recommendations by the architectural review board. We're going to inundate you with paper tonight, too. And these, which Sarah will pass out. She must have passed out others. I forget. Balloons next.
Thank you.
And that second packet is the formal amendments that show the revisions that we'll go over in this presentation, just so you have them for your binder.
You can do this in 10 minutes.
Well, gotta do what you gotta do. So Joe's put together this presentation, so he'll actually be leading that. I'm just here for commentary, I guess. Let you take the floor.
Thank you. Joe Thomas, Metro Development, 470 Old Worthington Road, West Ohio, 43082. Appreciate everybody's time this evening. I had put together a quick presentation just to kind of give you a background of this location of the community and what we're providing here this evening. As Todd mentioned earlier, we've already met with the ARB. Prior to that, we met with regional planning. Prior to that, we've been working with the Delaware County Engineer's Office, Delaware County Sanitary Department, Delco Water, ODOT, to get up to today's approvals that we're working through with Berlin Township. So once we have Berlin Township's administrative review approval on this particular development, we'll be able to move forward quickly on starting the community. Because all the plans are in place. Engineer's office has reviewed their entire set of construction drawings, sanitary department as well, Delco Water, and ODOT has approved the access along 3637. So, location of the community is on state route or US route 3637. And it's just adjacent to the RCDRB, which is on the east side, and on the we're on the east side of the RV place is on the west side. And just next to us also is the Cape of Mono Homes. So just give you a little context, and I'm going to kind of difficult for everybody to see the screen, but after the road, 3637, when you come across 3Bs and K, both north and south, 4 winds and I-71. I mentioned earlier, these are the adjacent businesses along that corridor along 3637. Just adjacent to us on the west side is the RCDRB. Just to the east of us is the Albanian. On the other side, American Home Place. And then there's a couple other businesses, the Frisky Concrete and Hills Blacktop, which are all located in the area. I've actually spoke to all those individual landowners that are adjacent to our properties, and we actually own the property just to the south of us. So, give you background while we're here in this development in particular. I don't know if all of you have been aware of it, but ODOT, Delaware County, City of Sunbury has been working on an interchange project just to the south of the existing 3637 and just to the south of what they call the Tanger Out Mall. I think some people may say that this project interchange has been discussed since the late 90s. How we became more involved in this project, we had ground located here, which was previously in Berlin Township, which we called Ravines and Meadow Ridge. And during that process of ODOT and the Delaware County and the City of Sunbury, which was the village back then, wanting to expand this interchange, not only have an interchange along 71, but also diverting access into the City of Sunbury, going to the east, and then Berlin and City of Delaware going to the west. So ultimately, they're looking at keeping the existing 3637 alignment, but having essentially an express route that goes from 3637 down to this interchange to alleviate a lot of the traffic congestions along 3Bs and K, 4 winds, and the interchange at this location. As part of that project, we were asked to participate in the engineering and financing of the interchange and all the other roadways. So we worked with the City of Sunbury, Delaware County, and ODOT on our project just to the south of us, on Ravines and Meadow Ridge, and annexed into the City of Sunbury. And that project is 744 apartments, which we'll be undertaking here roughly in late July. We started construction on that. But as part of that development, the funding for the parkway, we're roughly over $55 million. Going to be through an NCA, which is a direct assessment on the property, additional assessment on top of the tax bill that'll generate funds from the parkway and the interchange. And then there's a TIF that was developed for the property as well that adds additional funding for the parkway. So essentially, the funding for Ravines and Meadow Ridge was the ability to get engineering started on the interchange immediately and also fund the west leg of of the development through those different funding mechanisms. Well, there was always an adjacent property just to the north of us, which is in Berlin Township, and that's the property we're talking about this evening, which we call Northport Residential Hotel. The business overlay, the Berlin Business Park overlay, was attractive to us because of the type of product that we have in our development process, which is called a residential hotel. So tonight, we made this development in front of you, which consists of to the northeast corner, the hotel building, which contains the hotel lobby and other various suites. In addition to the hotel lobby, in the exterior and out front of the hotel lobby is a swimming pool with guest amenities on top of the swimming pool deck. There'll be a fire pit as well as an outdoor kitchen for the hotel guests to use. And then also associated throughout the community itself will be 5 additional hotel guest buildings. And within the community, there'll be a large walking trail, which is associated with the almost 1 acre open space in the center. And in terms of that open space, there's also a dog park. Through the process of working with the Delaware County Engineer's Office, and regional planning, we've also worked through an additional commitment of a future access to what would be called the Sunbury Parkway Multi-Use Trail, which is down here in the southwest corner. So that's adjacent to this hotel building located right there. This blue line on the south of this community here is the stormwater pondage, which is on the property line, both of the Northport Residential Hotel and the Reeds Meadow Ridge. So that actually is the sole water ponding for the Northport Hotel. And just to the south, or just to the north of the pond itself, is 2 garage buildings. This particular piece that you see, this green open space here, the reason this is located here, and we have adjacent retaining wall around it, is we're going to be maintaining the wetland that's located at the top portion of that site. The Cahovanian model building has a large storm drainage that comes through the site that was backed up at some time, which ultimately created this large wetland that was left unmaintained. So in consideration of that, with the hydrology and the standing water of this particular, it over time created this wetland. So we're going to be maintaining that wetland in that area undisturbed. We're actually building a retaining wall around it, and we're going to take this, which used to be a drainage, used to come directly to the middle of the site. We're now going to divert it to the east side of our property line and into a ravine that's located on the Reeds Meadow Ridge. And then all the stormwater in this community will be directly distributed to this stormwater basin and then outletted into the same ravine. So that's the simple structure of the stormwater. Then Todd Ferris can go into detail about the site plan as it relates to the business park overlay considerations. So if you don't mind, Todd, if you can go into detail what the different elements are.
Yeah, I'm Todd Ferris. You guys are probably familiar, well, maybe not, I mean, we're kind of familiar with it now too. I mean, obviously, I think we're the first one through this district. The overlay district has requirements for building setbacks. They have a build-to line, basically, where we need to front our buildings onto a major roadway. So to accommodate that, you'll see that we have, I can't see that far, I'm sorry. So I can see the numbers. No, I got the thing here. So the lobby building, which is Hotel 6, and then Hotel 1, those are fronted on 36, 37. And they're actually, the one you'll see that's rotating, it's askew, but it's actually aligned with the future realignment of 36, 37. So we have taken that into account, knowing that we don't want to tear out a building and put it back in. Likewise, on Hotel 3, again, we had that frontage as well. It's going to be a frontage on the new parkway that's going to be there. So we fronted that as well with the same setbacks in compliance with the code. The code also requires interior green space, central green that's equivalent to, I think, 15% of the site or something like that. don't quote me on that, but, on the percentage. But we fulfill that, we have, look, as Joe mentioned, located within that interior green space, a walking path that goes around it, wood benches, landscaping, there's a dog park, there's also the, mail kiosk, and just a large area for activities that need to occur in that area. Again, there's building setbacks based off of project periphery. That's determined by building size, basically the heights and depths and stuff. And we've complied with that as well. There's one item that we had to go back and look at, and that was the garages, and that's one of the things that we looked at. The garages have moved to the southern property line. We had them 6 feet off the property line. They should have been a little under 12, but that didn't work. So we had to move those to the southern property line. But now we're in compliance with all the building setbacks from the project periphery. The code also requires an extensive amount of landscaping, which we have fulfilled. It requires buffering along the major roadways with street trees. I think it's like 30. There's 30 feet or 1 per 30 feet. You can group them and stuff like that. But so we've accommodated that in those locations, as well as screening between our parking lots and others. That was another requirement as well. Interior parking lot landscaping, that's been fulfilled as well with the amount of trees and the shrubbery as well. So, yeah, when you start putting together all the parts and all the pieces of the requirements, this is kind of what you come up with. It was an awkward shaped piece of property to begin with, but what we did accommodate all the requirements within this study.
Thank you, Tom. To go forward with the presentations, these are the elevations of the residential hotel buildings. As we met with the ARB previously, some modifications that we made on these buildings. Unfortunately, some of the stuff we should have picked up on previously, but the element of the exterior colors of the buildings wasn't where you could use blues. So we had to pivot and go with more grays on these developments. So what you see in front of you is a mixture of all natural materials, which have a mixture of board and batten, horizontal siding, shake siding, stone, and brick. Again, there's various features throughout the entire building that has elements of all of those different types of fixtures or features on the exterior of the building. So you can see from the standpoint of the presentation, you have a couple panels of stone, you have a couple panels of the horizontal siding, shake siding, and board and batten elements are located underneath or behind would be the decks and patio areas, and then the elements of the exterior patios and interior patio and breezeway railing is all black. We noted in that color. So the exterior patio railing, again, and the breezeway railing details inside there are all black in nature. And again, as we mentioned earlier, as part of these, this development, we also have 2 garage buildings, which has 6 garage bays throughout. And those are a mixture of brick and horizontal siding, which is all natural material. And then we have a mail kiosk, internal 2 feet as well, that has the same features, natural material. Difference of this roof design that has a actual weather vane on top of a cupola. And then the trash compactor, which is located here as well, has exterior stone on the 3 sides and a wooden element for the gate that hides the actual element of the trash compactor completely. So the height of the compactor, walls, and gate, you cannot see the structure inside. And these are the actual colors of the exterior materials. So you have a mixture of what we call cavern steel, which is a darker gray. Then you have elements of the trim itself, which we call snowscape white. And then the actual shake siding color is called driftwood. And then the stone is a Dutch quality material. It's Kentucky blend limestone. brick is made by Triangle, it's called Sportsmith. And then the roof elements or the shingles is a dimensional shingle that goes on all the roof elements, both the buildings, the garages, and mail kiosks. So these are elevations of the buildings themselves in real form. This is actually not the color per se, but the architectural elements that we showed on the architectural renderings. So as you can see within these actual colors, the largest variance from this development to these pictures is the breezeway railing is no longer that material, it's all black wrought iron. As you can see in the pictures in the internal breezeways, they were all cedar, unpainted, but actually stained clear, but these will all be black going forward. So then these are other elements of actual pictures of these type of buildings. In the swimming pool area, kind of a nice element of a sunset view of the buildings, with the garages in the foreground and the elements of the ends of the buildings, which we've changed up a little bit due to the comments of the ARB, some other elements. Floor plans of suites, we have a one-bedroom suite. Every suite will have a kitchen, fully appliance with range, microwave, refrigerator, dishwasher, and of course washer and dryer. The guests will have living area, bathroom area, large closet areas within the bedrooms itself. And then there's a two-bedroom suite that has 2 bathrooms. Guest quarters are 2 separate bedrooms, which has a little larger living area and larger kitchen area, both appointed with appliances, both the range, microwave, dishwasher, and refrigerator, and washer and dryer. And these are internal pictures of the hotel lobbies, which are have the hotel guest amenities of the exercise equipment internally to it. There'll be a coffee bar for the residents, the game room area, as well as a small office area that we equipped with computers, as well as scan and fax and copy capabilities for the hotel guests. The internal suites, or you can see furnished here, in the kitchen area on the top left, bedrooms. The bottom left is the outdoor patio, and then the suite, actual living area, and then the suite's bathroom, which is in the bottom right. So, kind of summarize, and I know Sarah and Todd had additional exhibits to hand out, which will kind of address the comments that we received from the ARB, clarification and or design elements. I guess we printed out 2 separate pages in your presentation. I apologize. I think it's 2, correct? So, kind of hit the check boxes of the ARB checklist. Right off the bat, we kind of met the conditions of the minimum track size, the lot width, and then the setbacks. Then the minimum side yard and rear setbacks, which was before, I believe, was some of the labeling that we had internally to the previous submittal. And I don't know if you want to hand out those. Oh, I'm sorry. They have the new.
Yes.
Okay, apologize. So if you see in Exhibit C, the rear setback now is 36.5, and the side setback is labeled as well, except for garage, which is 12 feet, which is the correct location now with the distance from the rear property line, or the south property line. We had no adjacent buildings to the property line, as far as with the code being certain distance from the property line with the height and width equation. So we did not have anything within those setbacks. So we got an NA on that. Building height We're under the 45 foot. You can see in the, I think the architectural renderings that we put in the package, I think to show that the building height is actually 41 feet 4 inches overall.
The hotel lobby's really healthy. It's 44.
Correct. Hotel lobby is 44, and then the garage height, which gave us the distance from the property line that we made a mistake on previously, is 11 feet 3 inches. So that equation was added to the notes, and then the actual, as Todd mentioned earlier, we had to move the hotel, the garage themselves to the south property line. And you can stop me if I'm going too fast. And then the building size itself, if you go to exhibit F1 and F3, side of Hotel 6 facing 36, 37 has been revised. There was actually discussion that we went through at the ARB meeting. The building that faces, or any face of building that faces 36, 37 has to be addressed in such a manner that looks like a front of the building. So the element of this building itself is the far right bottom element, and the second one in from the right side. So the whole entire first floor will be storefront glass. Above the storefront glass will be a steel awning with cables, and then the storefront door on the left-hand side. And above that will be fixtures that we added to the elements of the building, addressing that side of the building with board and batten, and or additional window features, which is that center, and then the shade siding above that, and then the water table across the bottom of the elements themselves. So that element itself will be, which is the front building located up against 36, 37, and the swimming pool area. So that element will be right here facing 36, 37. Was a note that we addressed. And then I think from an element of facing 36, 37 must appear to be a front. Again, that was addressed as well. Then the item of building design, traditional artisan design, same detail on all sides. What was mentioned in the ARB is that we had blank wall spaces. So what the elements that we added in those spaces itself. So if you look at the ends of the building, which you'll see at the far right, two elements here, we addressed that element with adding the additional shutters in the center of the building to eliminate that large blank space. So that was and then building materials. We added additional notes under exhibit F1 and F3. Additional shutters have been added to the building end to break up the wall and stone visible on the sides. And then under building colors, which I addressed earlier, I apologize before again. I guess we should have just addressed this, because it simply does say gray sky blues. I guess it's subjective or objective at this point, but anyways, why not address that and just go with the gray elements that we addressed in the buildings themselves. And then again on blank walls, design elements, again added the shutters to address those as well. And then under roofing, the slopes must be at least 612, which we got a check box there. And then we added exhibit F1 and F2 again. The colors have been updated to pure gray color palette. And then I think we addressed all the other items with ground coverage, in the checkbox, open space, landscape, access and connectivity, pavement details, parking details, parking islands, parking spaces, space size, Peak parking was an NA, loading spaces NA, and perimeter NA, and then signage. Check that box as well as the lighting. One item on the lighting that we weren't able to clarify last time, we addressed it in the new handouts. Was to submit an actual photometric plan. And there was a cap of 3,000 lumens that we were to be under, and I believe we're at
3,100.
Yeah, we're at 3,000 under, I think is the actual quote.
2197 and 2714.
So, we made sure we qualified on those items. And, other items, sidewalk and MUPs. Same, I think, as we did on the top number of those, we hit the checkbox there. And then the environmental sensitivity, as I explained earlier,
We didn't put that in the slideshow, it's like 40 pages or something, in the wetlands report. But Kristen wanted us to have that report in there and mitigation to show you guys how we do that. So what's in the past. We've had that as an exhibit to, what you have in that package.
Okay.
so essentially, just want to go to the highlights of what we have at ARB, our presentation this evening on our residential hotel, and essentially answer any questions the board may have. I'm going to Steve Cutler, TAP is also part of our development team, and he's here tonight to answer any questions as well. Todd Harris and myself. Not to belittle the process or say, that the process is easy or of any nature, but we've been working at this development text and development process for over a year. Todd was very concerned that coming through this process, we'd be one of the first ones to come in front of the board, go through the Berlin Business Park overlay. He wanted to make sure that the design engineers, which is Terrain Evolution, was able to, fix the actual building so there would not be any movement after we come through this process due to engineering concerns. So we worked with the Delaware County Engineer's Office, again, Sanitary and Delco, to go through the engineering process first to make sure all those items are addressed. It's not necessarily, like Todd mentioned, it's not the easiest site as far as shape because of its boundaries. And there was an existing pond that's located in this area. And there's a large drainage area that comes into the site that drains from 3B to K, 3637 all down to the site that we had to address. Delco Water, we're extending the water line to this development. There is no existing Delco service for this area. Everything really, for any size of service stops at 3Bs and K. So there's nothing truly west except for some service lines that go to the model homes on that. So we're extending a 10-inch water line with hydrants, not only to this community itself, but across the front border. And we're also bringing another water line from the south to basically connect Delco's water service so it has full capacity for this area. They see a lot of future development happening in this area with the overlay and the development of Parkway and 3637. So, again, here for questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Any questions?
I didn't, they've been here before, this was
This first.
okay. Yeah, I had a few questions, and one of my biggest concerns is this really follow the township's mission of being a rural living area. I think that's not the rural living area for the mission statement for the town, so. I mean, 5 hotels that are next to a hotel, next to a highway is
It's 6
subject
hotels.
to a lot of issues, I think.
Yeah, it's 6 hotels, but
With the with the lobby. So, yeah, off the get-go, I don't like it at all. That's just I mean, you guys are taking more trees out. I know ODOT's gonna be taking a lot of those out too, with the construction of the new parkway. And this wouldn't start until the highway was complete?
No, we started getting it. We've actually planned for, as Todd shows in the development plan itself, we've actually moved our development away from the future right of way, which is the elevations here and here, in both front of the buildings on the future, which is 36 in Africa Road and new 36 or somewhere.
So you're betting on a come that nothing happens on the development when they start scraping dirt and.
Well, no, we've worked, like I mentioned, we've worked with ODOT, Delaware County Engineer's Office, Delco Water, Sanitary Department to eliminate all those issues to where we stay outside of the work limits of the future parkway, both the northwest corner and the
Right.
southwest corner, because we understood that we've been working, as I mentioned, on this entire area for a number of years to basically solve those answers with a new parkway alignment.
And you guys have done all the traffic studies on this and
Correct.
what it's gonna be. And I'm curious on the retention pond too, the water. Now they have a lot of hard surface there, rooftops and asphalt. Is that retention pond large enough to hold a 99-year flood?
Yeah, so the design engineers have actually submitted all these drawings to the county engineer, which also is part of that process. They do an entire stormwater manual, and that manual contains all the criteria that's required as part of the stormwater management, which, you know, from a 2 to 10 year stormwater event, 100-year stormwater event, 25-year stormwater event, and all those calculations have been presented to the county and approved. So the sizing of the pond, the sizing of the internal pipe, the sizing of the internal collection of the water itself, which is the storm structures, you know, from the structure down to the pipe to the actual pond sizes and the outlet have all been approved by Delaware County Engineer's Office.
And you guys are jumping a zoning commit, right, from what to what again?
Berlin commercial overlay, that's a hotel which is permitted use underneath the code. So not switching any zoning.
And we're here for administrative review and non rezoning.
Yeah.
But the idea was to meet and not ask for any variances. So we presented this plan this evening that meets every code requirement of the Berlin Business Park overlay as it goes with the DCO, Article 15, down to a T. So the only item we haven't filled yet is to go through the administrative process. So we've worked with Delaware County Prosecutor's Office to make sure that the residential hotel qualifies for the Berlin Business Park overlay, you know, which obviously is something that we would be concerned with because we already bought the property. So that was something we addressed with the Prosecutor's Office that represents this board. So we made sure we ran through that before we closed on the property.
So what do you call residential hotel?
So there is the state requirement of a hotel, which you have to obtain a license from the state of Ohio. So you have to build the hotel to the hotel standards, which essentially is R1 standards. So you have to build it in such a nature that it's a commercial structure, so it has all the fire alarms, the fire suppression, the proper exit. So each hotel.
Same thing with an apartment.
Yeah, well, it's different. So this has to meet a higher standard than an apartment. So the higher standard is the R1 standards of a residential hotel, which has to meet any other type of hotel requirements, which I mentioned earlier, is the hotel licensing requirement, which you have to go through extra inspections by the state fire marshal. You have to get a hotel license from the State Department of Commerce. You have to have annual inspections. But prior to that, you have to actually submit your drawings to the state for them to approve the actual construction method, which is the R1. So there's higher standards on the building construction itself, between fire alarms, the fire suppression, the exits, and the actual construction method of the building itself, with the what they call firewalls in between the hotel suites, the actual firewalls that separate the ceiling and floor, and then other details of the exits have to be fire rated with the suppression as well in the exits. You have to have pull stations and fire alarms, you have to have exterior fire extinguishers, then you have to also have exterior FTC, which is the fire department connections to the buildings. So the fire department can hook up to that. If a fire occurs, they can hook up to those FTCs and actually blow additional pressure through the existing fire suppression. So they hook to a hydrant outside, through their truck, and into the actual building itself at that level. But, you know, we meet the same standards as any other transient hotel. The only item that we set ourselves apart is what we call a residential hotel. So we have a minimum stay of 30 days.
So there's
Whereas,
not a week stay or?
no, minimum stay is 30 days. Other hotels of the transient nature would be, of course, a one-night stays that they can go off the highway and have, you know, whatever rates available.
So they have no different than like the extended stay down in Polaris.
Correct. So the element here is we market our hotels to people on short-term work assignments. People are here for consulting business or other developments that they're here for a shorter stay than a traditional apartment. They come with hotel amenities that apartments don't have, furnished suites on request. They have linen service, they have concierge service, additional elements for the actual hotel guest where they can have our staff either book them a rental car or get them other elements of, theater tickets, for instance, baseball tickets to the Clippers games. You go down the list of other concierge services that we offer to our hotel guests. Because essentially they're long-term business clients that we've developed over the years. As I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I did, I apologize. I've been in 2 presentations, the second one this evening, but we've been developing in Central Ohio since 1964. We've been doing the residential hotel product since the early 90s. And then also throughout the northern part of Columbus and Delaware County. More recently, we did another development in Berkshire Township, located behind the Chipotle at Four Winds. It's the Four Winds residential hotel. It was the same process. It was in a business overlay. We brought it forward through the Berkshire process, which had administrative review as well. Met all their criteria with no variances. So, what was ideal about this location is the close proximity to 71, both north and south. Ultimately, everybody knows what's happening in the far east part of Central Ohio is the Intel. So there's going to be a lot of temporary jobs created for those elements that will need housing. We're roughly about 20 minutes from Intel. And then they have a lot of housing needs for the businesses located at Polaris Parkway. That there's essentially just not enough housing of this type in that particular area, and/or Delaware County, the city of Delaware.
Right. There's not a lot of amenities in that area for staying. Yeah, so I'll keep pondering as you like to go visit some of the areas that you've done, because it looks like an apartment versus a hotel.
We try to make it more homey. I don't know if that's a term we should throw out there, but it's a more of a residential feeling.
Right.
I'd say a lot more.
I say the resident inn.
Yeah, there's a lot more residential amenities for our clients.
Yep.
The hotel lobby, they can have access 24/7 for the actual exercise areas. The hotel pool area, the dog parks, even people traveling nowadays for short terms to take their pets with them. So it's an amenity that our guests and clients have asked for in any kind of development. Is the dog park.
So
Sought after amenity.
would you guys maintain ownership of it, or you sell it off to?
Yeah, we maintain ownership and also manage the property as well, full time.
Sure. So mentally, I'm trying to differentiate really between an apartment and a hotel. And part of what you said, the way it's licensed through the state, some of the extra safety features that I get. You mentioned, they would all be furnished?
Upon request of the client. So some are unfurnished,
That doesn't sound like a hotel.
Well, yeah, so that's the difference between a residential hotel qualification and like an extended stay or traditional hotel. Some of our clients are traveling that need a furnished apartment, some are moving to the area and they have their own furniture temporarily, so they furnish apartments. Some of their businesses furnish the apartments, so there's a different variation. So like I said, some are furnished, some are not, some are furnished by the clients themselves, so there's a variation between those different levels of service for each individual customer. So Port Furniture is our provider for furniture, and we use them all over Central Ohio for those different amenities, beds, desks, couches, and so on and so forth.
So you provide things like sheets and towel service,
If
laundry?
needed, correct.
If needed.
Yeah.
So that would be like an add-on?
Yeah, so every
Cost to them?
cost is a la carte in a sense, so there's not one set rate. One thing we do have to do as part of our hotel requirements, we do post a nightly rate, which equivalent is our base price for a minimum 30-day stay. So that's all part of the inspection, licensure, review process. So State Fire Marshal, Berlin Township Fire Department, Delaware County Building Department, they all review those different items. The one item that's, like I mentioned earlier, that's the different element that you add to these is the exits. There's actually double number of exits that you would have in a traditional apartment. And then again, the fire alarms, the fire suppression, and a lot of the other items with internal too. So we have to add like strobes for people that may have a hearing disability. We have strobes in the unit so they can, if someone's at the front door, for instance, if they have a package delivery or something of that nature, they actually get a doorbell, which is on a strobe rather than a signal or a chime. And then we have the first floor, all the units are ADA accessible or type A, ADA with the roll-in showers and the roll-under vanities, the roll-under kitchen sinks, ADA accessible appliances such as the range, the microwave is not above the range in the type A, so it's in a cabinet, which is easily accessible from a wheelchair. Bathrooms are associated with grab bars. Floors are wider. Your thermostats are lower. Your light switches are lower, and your receptacles are higher. So and then all the bedroom doors, the bathroom doors, closet doors, all these are much wider than traditional homes.
Okay, so a lot of hotels as well have cleaning service, is that
That's another service we offer.
food service, bar, restaurant?
None of those, correct. Now, there's a coffee bar for residents and guests inside the actual hotel lobby. So that's during normal business hours. They can access that. Again, internal to the community center or the actual hotel lobby and the exercise facilities, we call it. There's an exercise facility and that's fully accessed through a key fob. That's all access through their system. And then internal to that would be a nice little piece of equipment that we've added to our residential hotels. It's called a mirror. It's actually a wall-mounted television screen mirror that gives you 40, 50 different options for exercise classes you can pick from, Zumba, for instance, or whatever else may be added. There's associated bicycles that can be used as part of that service as well. But the hotel guests are traveling quite a bit, don't have a lot of time for exercise or to join a class in the area, so they have this ability, which is fully accessible through the network.
So, for example, what would it cost to rent or have a lease for a
On average, it's about $2,200 a month. It can go as low as $1,400 and as high as $3,500, depending on the services you ask for or request. So,
Have all utilities included?
no, they pay separate for utilities.
It's very odd.
Yeah, it's why it's a residential hotel classification. There's 3 classifications in a hotel. There's a transient hotel, extended stay hotel, and a residential hotel. 3 separate classifications. In each classification, you got to meet different requirements. Transient hotels, everybody knows that there's no minimum stay. there's no maximum stay. Then the extended stay has a little bit other limitations than the residential hotel. Minimum stay is 30 days. Then you have to meet all the other classifications about the building construction, access, oversight by the state fire marshal.
So do the utilities get billed through you, or do they have to establish like with AEP or whoever?
They establish with the utility provider.
Sounds like we're pain in the neck. You're saving 30 days.
Well, nowadays everything is on an app, and it's usually accessible through a QR code. You walk in, you know, here's your utility provider for your electric, your water, your wireless or internet, all lined up, put on the app. Everything is ready. So if they want to have their, you know, whatever service, or as the internet provider, they can choose different levels that they want. Everybody's looking for, you know, either a stronger signal as far as their internet signal, so they can, you know, go like normal. Like if you go to a hotel now and you want to, you know, get a certain level of service on the internet, of course, you go on the hotel website and do that now. It's a QR code on your handheld device, and you just dial off whatever product you like and have there ready. And that's all built into the unit, the suite itself.
So it's the responsibility of the renter to start it and stop it.
Yes. So there is some oversight by our team, you know, for a lot of the services to make sure the hotel guests know exactly what services are provided, who to contact, and what level of service. You know, there's brochures and more information that's provided to them on.
Yeah, when I moved out here, I had a 3-month stay in an apartment just because I was a moved in.
So you said you've got other residential hotels. Do those have, as a rule, any impact on the school? Do people bring their
Well,
kids?
I would say no impact, but some residents are traveling and or moving to the area. So if they're buying an MI home, for example, in Berlin, they are probably on a 10 or 12-month schedule, but they have already relocated to the community and have a job, and that's why they're buying a home. So in the interim, they'll actually have an agreement with us to stay. Both, you know, a lot of times those garage spaces are used for, you know, storing their existing furniture for that use while they're looking or wanting to build or having their house built. There's a great example where they've already chose to live in and live in Olentangy schools. So they want to live temporarily someplace close. This is an Olentangy school. It's a good example when they do have school-age children. We've worked with the schools on all our products because of that, you know, planning for them in particular. They know we're coming, they know what developments we're building, how we're building them, what number of students to expect, so they can plan for future development and or their existing elements they have within their buildings for classroom sizes, teachers, you know, those type of items. So we work with both Jeff, Gordon, and previously Mark, Ray, now Todd Myers. Every time we do a development, for that reason, so they know it. They look at the earlier stages of your guys' efforts on the overlays and the comprehensive plan. So they plan from that nature also. Then they also plan by working with us, developers, not just myself, but other developers as well, to know what the future expansion is.
So apartments as a rule, and I don't know the calculation, there is a calculation when you have an apartment complex. For every unit, you want to generate X number of students. Is this a different calculation, or is there one?
So apartment is 0.18.
Okay.
So that's their calculation they use for students in an apartment. Ours is 0.1. So almost half. Again, that will fluctuate monthly, depending on the length of stay or the availability of their home being ready. And that's why we have clients that have children, is because they're moving to the area. There's no other short-term housing available for a family condition. So this is a good environment for them in that, you know, type of world. Plus the close proximity to 71 and access to most of the you know, employers in this central region.
So looking at your traffic study, a lot of the data was pulled from like 2019. So the county has grown, I don't even know what the percentage of growth is, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't thrilled with those calculations.
Well,
Don't-
they build into that. So
Yeah, I saw that.
every traffic study we do,
Right.
they have us work with the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning, which is more safe. And they look at the models, and they build in the growth rates, look at every individual traffic study or traffic access study for that reason. Because they're capturing the traffic that there is now, but you also want to build your infrastructure, your roadways, your accesses to what would be a 10-year outlook. And during that process, you're looking at the growth rates. So they take all those into consideration. These guys go to school for additional.
I
4
know,
years.
but my common sense was kicking in and saying, they're saying no right-hand turn lane. You mentioned students, and I realize it's a minimal amount, but there is a bus making a left-hand turn into this off of 36, 37.
I don't know if
That
there's
really makes me-
bus access in this location. Traditionally, there is not.
They have
I mean,
students, I
yeah.
think they have to provide.
No, they will provide a bus stop at some location that their parents will have to give them.
On 36,
36, 37, they stop right out on 36,
Yeah.
37.
So.
Anyway, that just terrifies me. I have a visceral reaction to that. And I understand that people with the traffic studies know a lot more than I do. I acknowledge that. And yet at the same time, I'm finding that, once again, I'm not seeing the common sense in no turn lanes.
Can I comment on the Plains schools? All right, so I'm really familiar with this type of product. When people come and rent, because they don't want to get into a lease with an apartment because they are moving into the school system and they're trying to find a home, so they can't have a 6-month or a 12-month lease, not to mention you can't even find an apartment right now.
Sure.
So they're responsible, buses don't go in and out of there because you have to register yourself at a specific time. And granted, if you move into the school system, it's different, but you can't register something like this.
Okay.
To, like, there's no, and that would only be Johnny Cake Corners, right? Because Johnny Cake Corners, this is within Johnny Cake Corners. Now, whatever elementary school you're going to, or middle school, high school, whatever it is, I just chose Johnny Cake because my kids go there. Well, one does now, but basically it is that parent's responsibility, that guardian's responsibility to get their child to school and pick them up.
Well, that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah, so
That's one thing.
that
That's
is,
one thing.
that's how it works.
Sure.
With, like, there would not be a bus stop there.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm still concerned about the turn lanes.
Yes.
Lack thereof.
Yes.
Well, now, what we gotta remember is that what ultimately long-term they see happening in this area is that really this scenario gets well downgraded from a traffic standpoint. So the north side of this development, which is the existing 36, 37, more becomes like a business district. So the south side, which is a new parkway, is more of the traveling traffic mover. So this element, and this will have a signal here at this intersection between the new Africa Road alignment and 36, 37.
That's all someday, and you're talking about construction in the next
Correct.
10 years.
So, the horizon or the 10-year build out, they look at those issues. If it's not built or will be built, an interchange, and then the elements of what the traffic is currently and the future growth. So, now if the county and ODOT required us to put a turn lane in, we can put a turn lane in as part of that, but they don't want their roadways improved just because the development's going in, they want them improved if the traffic warrants it.
Sure.
So it's the issue of the fine line of, that ODOT owns this particular right of way. So ODOT controls exactly what you can and can't do in those areas, traffic signals, turn lanes, arc cut, whatever you make, having this element, they're the ones gonna control that. And they look at this as a
Because
very
that's
minor.
60 miles an hour. Somebody's
Yeah,
making a right-hand turn in
Yeah,
there
it's
with
still
no
60
turn
miles.
lane. And there are huge trucks barreling down that pretty fast.
And it backs
It's
up
terrifying.
that, it backs up that far a lot of
Yeah,
times.
it's terrifying.
Yeah, same thing coming out, that left turn coming out in the proximity to Africa,
It's horrible.
to me, that Africa intersection is horrible now.
It shouldn't allow a left turn there.
Trying to make that cut.
And I realize traffic's not in our purview, I get it. But as people sort of considering what the township's gonna look like, I just find that really frightening. I mean, there have been fatalities there already, and we don't have all those added tricks that this will generate. But in addition to that, I know it's a hotel, it's not an apartment, but the density is very, very high considering, how we envisioned this. And,
Well,
How many units are in each building?
So it's 130 suites overall.
in less than 7
24.
acres.
There's 24 in the 5 buildings, and then 10 in the hotel lobby.
Well, and I will also mention your traffic study did say 120 units, so it wasn't,
It was updated to 130.
I don't have an update on that.
So we submitted to ODOT saying,
We don't have that, so,
so we'll
So-
provide that. But I'm saying it's all been done,
okay.
approved for the 130 suites. Prior to, you mentioned it was 120 suites.
Yeah, can't make that turn together, go all the way down 71. Hilarious to come all the way back up Africa.
If you live.
Yeah, it's a long loop to.
Yeah, so I'm unhappy with the density. I get what you're trying to do, and I think that it's needed. I like it. I like a lot of it.
Yeah, we don't look at it as a density equation.
Yeah, and
Commercial
I get you don't.
And we, like I mentioned, we looked at this very closely.
Right,
You guys created the overlay.
sure.
We saw the opportunity for business park overlay and work with the county prosecutor's office because it's a commercial structure, it's not an apartment.
Right,
It's a hotel, which doesn't have a limitation on the number of suites.
right.
You just have to meet the criteria of the business park overlay. Again, we're not asking for any variances.
I have to say, it's called a residential hotel, yet you keep referring to it as a hotel, but then when you look at the residential uses under that commercial, it says, under R10, the, density is 10 units per net developable acre. And I think I have to agree with her, it's like, you're using the word residential, but then also just
Yeah,
referring back to
again,
hotel.
There's 3 different classifications in the overlay, right? There's the commercial applications, which we applied under, and then there's the R4 and R10 standards, which we did not apply. So, again, Steve Cutler was tapped, he's obviously the legal expert that's working with the prosecutor's office.
Totally under the commercial application under your overlay. So the residential doesn't, any residential scrutiny doesn't apply.
Steve, did you identify yourself
Yes, ma'am.
for the record?
Steve Cutler, 94 Sandusky Street, Delaware, Ohio, 43015.
And you're the attorney for the applicant?
Here's the information, sorry, I'll give everybody, there's the information about the overlay as well as the hotel use, prosecutors.
So what you're saying is anything that's a hotel is not subject to any density calculation at all?
Because it's under the commercial class.
But even commercial, they have some,
Lot coverage.
yeah.
Other restrictions, but
Standards
not
and
on that.
restrictions, right. Anyway, I only have one other comment, and then I wanted to say I really like the mail kiosk. I like that. It's very nice.
But, I kind of, understand where you guys are looking at, the clarification wise. We obviously discussed this with a lot of people in Delaware County.
Sure.
To make sure that we're not, overstepping our boundaries when it comes to an application and where we're looking for overlays. So, as I mentioned, we've been working on it for over a year as part of the process to make sure we meet every single item. Again, minus the corrections we had to make with the ARB. We made those corrections, so we're not asking for any variances. And, the challenge of the overlay, quite frankly, is the large open space requirement. That's not a traditional business park. Line item that we traditionally look at with these overlays, but obviously it's a nice amenity for our guests. Having that central green, having the ability to have that walking trail, ultimately connection to the Sunbury Parkway multi-use trail sometime that will, gain access to, on the east side of the 71 corridor into Sunbury, Tanger Outlet Mall, other elements that they're looking to develop in that area. And then, of course, future access to the west as well, pedestrian wise. So,
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Jasmine?
Oh,
Oh, you're going I'm gonna see if you guys ask all the questions I have on my page.
Obviously you addressed the concerns of the ARB, which is appreciated because I had those written down and was waiting to see if you had. So that is appreciated. I think in the traffic, I realize the studies and all of that, but I do still have concerns. More so with the timeline that you're developing versus the timeline of Sunbury Parkway. I think ultimately you will get to a point where Sunbury Parkway does take away traffic, but until that point, the most concern I have is the left out, going westerly. The fact that you still got it and you're gonna have it until Sunbury Parkway is constructed. I do see that as a safety issue because your left out is into the left turn lane, basically for Africa Road. So you're gonna have that back up, plus you turning into it as people have not necessarily identified that they're gonna come into there as well. So I see that as a lot of things going on, especially for, as you have deemed you are a residential hotel, for people that are not familiar with here. So I'm new to the area and I'm pulling into that, not knowing anything about how this area's traffic really works. If it was me and I've been here since 2000, I know what's happening there and I know how to deal with it. But you have expressly said that you are a residential hotel for people that are not from the area. I get the concept. Actually, 6 years ago, I would have needed this concept probably for 3 or 4 months. But I do have concerns around that, and I would like to see you take a look at whether it's restrictions on the left or some way to mitigate that. Because I do think,
Again.
I get that you don't necessarily have to, but.
No, I'm not saying I have to, I can.
Well,
The ODOT requirements that I cannot do any other improvements in the right of way. I mean, that's the traffic requirements is, no matter what we decide as what needs to be done in our minds, ODOT controls that. So they make that decision, just like they made every other decision for all these other businesses along 36, 37. This has full access, both left in, left out, right in. This has full access as we addressed tonight, and other areas along that area. So I'm at a limitation of what I can and can't do. We've worked with ODOT in Delaware County to solve those issues. But that's the kind of restrictions that what ultimately happens, as you know, is traffic in this manner traditionally won't be left out. If these people are working in the close proximity and travel at 71, they're going to be doing a right out and a left in at evening time. So if they're going to any type of grocery store or anything like that way, they're going to head towards Sunbury, most likely. I don't know if you guys try to get out on Africa Road at all, make a left-hand turn.
I won't take the one out of Africa.
No one does.
It's suicidal.
No one does.
Well, nobody
that knows
Because-
the area does.
Well,
That's my
I'm
concern.
saying, the limitations are, they will understand from being here for a short period of time what can and can't happen in those timeframes.
I see what you're saying, they'll learn, I just hate
But-
I hate to see your residents that are gonna learn the hard way. That's all. I mean, and I realize you can't control ODOT, so, but I'm just,
Understand?
I do appreciate that you approved the side of building 6. I did have questions around the multi-use path. I know initially we were looking to do that along 36, 37. I think the fact that it looks like now more that's gonna direct down the new Sunbury Parkway. And you'll have access to that. So I understand why you have it, and I don't know that you have the space to try to have it along 36, 37,
Yeah, they're gonna,
especially because they're gonna take that space away from you.
correct. So, this So Sunbury will be extended also with the new Africa Road, which will be a connection to that trail system as well in the future.
So do you have any access to the RV dealership after it gets demolished? I mean, could you take over a little bit of that space to do something?
We have not approached that, 'cause they're not gonna allow any access there, that close to an actual light. As you get closer to the signals, they want to restrict that access. So even if we were to, be closer to the RV, there wouldn't be access as close to that signal. We run every possibility.
Yeah, but not even just.
Now, we sat down with their deputy director, their director.
Well, I didn't mean it for exiting, but if you'd buy it for open space or something to help out the residents.
Why would you buy it for open space? They can give it to them for us.
I keep asking for developers to offer more open space,
Yeah, they can give it up.
because it's just gonna sit there.
Well,
It's a little pie left chunk.
Sunbury, right now, we're dedicating 5 acres here to Sunbury. That's part of the Parkway development. So they are looking at a municipal type of element here, be it a park, be it a recreation center. So they'll have open space in this area to the south, which is accessible through our trail system, is where the open space, additional open space will be for these guests. And then, of course,
So if Berlin Township doesn't pass it, are you gonna take it over to Sunbury and try to flagpole it again?
we don't want to address that at this point. We've made, every effort to qualify and apply to your code for that reason. To say this, what was difficult on the development to the south to meet the standards of the overlay was the setbacks. There was excessive building buffer of 200 feet that would reduce our development by half. And that would ultimately mean the funding for the parkway and interchange would be cut by half. So there was a domino effect that, Sunbury, NODOT, and Delaware County wanted us to contribute to those elements. It's not a small amount. We're paying additional tax. And then there's, of course, the tip element as well. And then Sunbury has something different that Berlin doesn't have, it's called impact fee.
And
So you pay per door for fire, parks, exit. So there's
I've
a,
had it happen with a community that was a mayor out in Colorado. We outlawed in flagpole annexations cannot happen. We just, and the city, the state said, okay, county.
these are essentially type 2 annexations that happen in
Yep.
state of Ohio, and Delaware County that by right of the actual applicant, that if you meet all standards. So it's not a, but you gotta weigh the pluses and minuses in that same scenario. If we subject this to a different requirement, you have different elements of cost.
We had.
Our element of cost here is different than Sunbury because we're doing all natural materials to meet the code. Sunbury, it's all vinyl. Those are the kind of elements, we're looking at a higher standard for commercial building up against the Parkway and or 3637. That, I think is, if you want to go down and see an element of higher standards.
And that's the way the township, we did a higher element too, and they would try to annex their stuff, and it wasn't allowed anymore, you couldn't do it.
So there's just different standards that you have to look at and weigh those items. We like Delaware County and Berlin Township. There's no reason for us to do development in Sunbury versus the township or the county. Other than, financial aspects of the parkway. If the parkway wasn't there or the future parkway wasn't there, it'd be a totally different environment in this area. There wouldn't be the funding requirements that the developers have to put up. There wouldn't be the funding requirements that the city and the state and the county have to put up. So it's just an element that, unfortunately, all these interchange expenses are hundreds of millions of dollars that the funds have to come from different pockets. And a lot of the funding is driven by the developers, both the west and east side of the park.
I mentioned most of the traffic's gonna come from LG up in Marion. For the battery plant is gonna put up.
Yeah, there's a lot of future.
So it's gonna be, most of those people are gonna try to make a left out of it, stay there. Because Intel, I don't think it's gonna be an impact, it's too far away.
Well, if you look at the elements that we look at with county, and, Delaware County, if you talk to all the different economic development people, this whole entire area may possibly be a resource for Intel in the sense of future businesses that have different elements. Services, housing will be one element. If you look at the traveling ring of a traditional Intel facility, this is actually within that traditional travel time for that element. So it's a 20-minute drive to the Intel factory from here. So if that,
Yeah, I've only got 3 more things.
sorry.
Yeah, just keep
Here's the
I'd love to hear about how Marion's gonna build something, but I'm gonna get back on. I guess a couple questions and then one comment. Residential hotel, just a question on like terms of lease. I know it's a minimum 30 days.
Correct.
How do you run leasing?
I'm sorry.
How do you run your leasing terms?
So it's all based on the client's and the guest wishes. So it's an element of certain number of days equals certain number of dollars. So they can do 30, 60, 90, 6 months, they can do a year. So it's all different elements of what they choose.
So they just have the minimum of 30, but they can kind of choose their terms, so to speak. That was question 1. 2, your green space area. I see that you have the dog park, but do you have any other amenities other than the dog park? I couldn't really tell based on some of the sizes. Like, what I'm thinking of is like park benches, other areas to,
There's park benches.
other than having to sit in the dog park?
No, we have park benches located around that, green space. Go on with your questions and I'll find them.
Okay. Well, that was my second question, and then my third was just a comment. And my comment was, I do like the design, I do like the natural materials you're using, and I do appreciate the fact that you over-landscaped from a standpoint of once it gets developed, as that starts to mature, I think it's really gonna help kind of block viewpoints and make it seem more like what is there now. Well, right now, there's nothing there, it's clear, but from a standpoint of the trees, and those being removed, I think it'll help it kind of bring it back to what like Berlin Township and the Allen Creek area kind of looks like. It is a very wooded, it is a very rural feel because of all that landscaping. So I do appreciate that you're kind of overdoing it with some of your landscaping to try to help add that back. I'm gonna say that.
D2.4 has all the benches that are in the central green space located. It's code note number 9.
Technically, I think D1 does as well, if they're
Yeah.
rectangles.
And I know I didn't see them specifically called out on D2.4, which one did you say also, D1?
I think D1 does technically as well, if they're the little rectangles that are near trees.
Yes,
So like,
but it doesn't call them out on this one, but yeah.
Okay.
D2.4 actually points to it and calls it the benches.
Thank you. That was it. Angela?
okay, so thank you, I really appreciate this. I love the updates that you did. I was also very confused with the summit. I'm like, is summit technically sky blue? I wasn't sure if we were missing a comma. So thank you for changing it anyway, because I think that's wonderful. The only thing that I personally was kind of thinking is, when I looked at the materials, the red brick just seems like it didn't go as well as maybe more of like a grayish brick would go with the colors, but that was just my personal preference and all of that. Just, you can take that away, throw it away, or whatever you want to. I do like that.
I would agree. But-
Okay.
But the other company likes red brick.
Sure. I mean, because we didn't say that you couldn't use red brick.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
I would agree the grays are more.
More appealing.
More appealing.
Yeah.
But he really truly loves
Yeah, that's okay.
red brick, and I probably changed 90% of it. The building elevation, he doesn't like, but he held out the brick.
There we go. Well, I think that I love the new building elevation. And I'm really happy that the middle areas where it was cedar previously have changed to wrought iron, because from a long-term perspective and maintenance and how Cedar can wear down over time, and especially if we keep getting this crazy rain like what we've been getting, the humidity, it just eats through that material. Thank you for updating building 6 like you did. I think that's the perfect way to kind of make it look more like a storefront or something similar to that, so it looks like in front of a building. One of my questions was specifically around, I guess I had a couple questions. And kind of traffic, kind of not. So the proposed, where you have from the lot next door that is to your east, I'm guessing that those are like the metal, I'm gonna call them pylons, but the metal large,
No bollards,
Yeah.
for fire access only.
yeah, but can a fire truck get around those?
No,
Okay.
they actually remove them. So if need be,
How do they remove them?
they're actually in actually a socket
Oh,
that
okay,
they remove, but they have a key that holds them into these sockets and you remove them, or they have us do, ones that bounce back.
okay, all right. Because that was my question is, with that,
It'll never be used, because we'll never have a fire.
there we go, fingers crossed, right?
Don't have fires,
Exactly.
But if your alarms go off,
they usually go off because a resident is, accidentally bumped
Yeah.
something, or, unfortunately, we do have people that accidentally hit the sprinkler heads.
Yeah,
So they're not only activated by smoke, but if the sprinkler head goes off, it trips a bolt that the alarm goes off. So it's a double system that either
Okay.
smoke or the fact that the water is moving,
sure,
they actually, so if you guys remember Christmas of this year, we had that, terrible weather that came with the winds.
Yeah.
So a lot of buildings, actually, from the temperature dropped so quickly and the wind, there was a lot of faults in people's fire suppression, because you have to fire suppress the outside walls too, and the actual breezeways. So those systems are only set up for a certain element of weather, and that was extreme. So there were fire alarms going all over Christmas Eve, Christmas night, all over Central Ohio that, of course, our property management team had to address. It was not fun.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because, so part of, again, my kind of question there was, and I'm sure that business probably wouldn't appreciate it, but if that was another access in and out, it's always, again, they probably wouldn't appreciate that anyway.
I don't appreciate the weather, but they took care of it.
Yeah. You were moving quickly towards the beginning, and you mentioned another proposed, I thought you said another proposed outlet onto the parkway towards the bottom,
No, just a multi-use trail.
the multi-use trail, okay,
So
so yes, that would be
We did not, in the first submission, we did not have this trail.
there. Okay,
So our elements ended at the internal perimeter. So a number of comments came up for future access to the future parkway.
okay,
So that was the element.
okay,
No, ODOT will not allow any more accesses on Sunbury
Yeah.
Parkway.
okay,
We made that argument, we tried to get access for this development, the development across the street, to have full access to the parkway.
Mhm. Well, you wouldn't want people cutting through, and that.
Well, no,
I
just
can see that
remove this access and only have access on the parkway here, was our first pitch to Delaware County and ODOT. And their, answer to us was absolutely not. They won't allow you to have any access on that parkway, other than access points further to the
I can see that.
Yeah, they're trying to make this parkway
flow.
flow very quick.
Yes,
So any access to this parkway is very limited.
yeah,
So I think it's 3 or 4 between Africa and ultimately to 71. So 4 wins will be an access.
yes, and then.
3 B's and K is taken away. So 3 B's goes away, gets a cul-de-sac at the end, no connections.
Where's the cul-de-sac?
This is gonna be on both ends of Sunbury. Sunbury, or 3 B's and K will be cut off.
Because we're down the middle of it. there's a.
So like at Sherman Road, it'll be cut off.
There'll be no future access from through these.
So 36, 37.
Now, ultimately, there'll be, Four Winds is not just supposed to go north and south. Now, when I say Four Winds will have access to, the old Route 37, the new route, and we're looking at roadways that will go east and west, well, 2 freeways
Okay,
that will be built by the block.
one is right there anyway.
Yeah, so they're gonna look, and that's all being done in some areas. There's actually agreements already in writing, when they start development, they have to put those roads in. 2 3Bs, 2 4 Winds, and continue 4 Winds all the way down to those developments. So those are agreements already in place.
Okay,
So if any development happens, the developer has to put them in.
He's already cleaning the space in 4 Winds.
so one of my last questions really then was around the wetlands. So, let me get back to my page out. There we go. So we have 5 wetlands and then we have that pond. And, you had mentioned the, butting up against your neighbor's property, the builder there, that 6-foot parking setback right there, and that's going to be with a retaining wall. So I'm guessing obviously we're sitting higher than that, right? And that allows for, so that's allowing for lower land to,
Yeah, so
can
that's.
you talk me through that, because I didn't understand that.
Yeah, so there's a large
Yes.
collection of bonding here
Yes,
because they allow their outlet and everything else to be blocked up. So there's cattails
yes,
and standing water in this location which crept over into this area.
I've all but blocked it so far.
Yeah, so we have to preserve that area.
Okay,
Now, the pond and the other isolated wetlands, we had to get permits both from the Corps of Engineers
mhm,
in the state of Ohio to fill it in, which we've done. With
okay,
those permits, you actually buy credits for a wetland bank. So the company actually creates wetlands, and they have to create the wetlands in a tributary area that you're developing in.
yeah.
So you're all set, double the amount.
So
So
will the
nice of you,
wetlands go
wetlands.
down into the ravines then, just below on?
Well, I'm just saying
the
from
metro
a
land?
wetland standpoint, these isolated wetlands, we have to, like, if we disturb like a quarter of an
Yes,
acre, we have to buy half acre credit. So a wetland bank will build a half acre of wetland somewhere else.
okay,
Is that a whole US law, or is it just, I know in Colorado, you couldn't disturb it.
Yeah, there's two different criteria that meet the state of Ohio. We have to meet the Corps, the Army Corps of Engineers, which is the federal law. Then in the state of Ohio, you have to meet Ohio EPA standards. So these are what they call isolated wetlands, or in this community, which we
yes,
added those features. Those don't have any kind of connection to a stream
okay.
or an actual waterway. So
But
they're
what
not
about,
navigable. So basically, you can't take a boat from one wetland to the other. That's just how they define them.
so in terms of water though, water clearly collects there, right?
No, it will not
It
in
does
the future. We'll be filling those in.
So where will the water collect outside of
So-
that? And is that?
There's a stream that comes between all these properties.
Mhm,
Oh, there's
the
a
ravine,
better,
yes.
probably better, almost right here.
We have several.
I don't know if
ravines in
anybody can
that
see
area.
that or not. But behind these buildings themselves, between the cable van and this other model home and these businesses, there's a stream outlet that goes behind here. That stream outlet will be collecting that water and
Okay, so
piping
you're
it
gonna
down to our ravine to the south.
Okay, so you're gonna just be
Piping it
providing,
through.
okay. All
But
right,
then-
that's fine.
Our own stormwater. Our own stormwater, which we collect on site, that runs off the roofs into the
Yeah.
parking lots, will be collected in this basin.
In that basin.
So we
okay.
have the parking lot structures, the storm
Yeah.
inlets, and then the pipes that collect. They come to here, they go into that basin, water sits in there,
Okay,
all the particulates settle to the bottom, you got phosphorus and nitrogen that, works its way out. And then the clean water comes out of structure into the stream here.
into the ravines,
Yeah.
okay, all right,
That's been filtered and cleaned. You have to have storage in the pond,
Mhm.
And you have to have the requirements of clean water. So you have to filter the water before it's released on
Okay.
a stream or another outlet.
Okay,
So, and those two meet the criteria of the Delaware County and also the state of Ohio. Stormwater, you have to get a stormwater permit from the state, called NOI,
Mhm.
and then you also have to get your plans approved and reviewed by the local municipality. Now, during the construction process, Delaware County also has a permit process that you, when you disturb the ground, they come out and make sure during construction that you are actually avoiding any of that runoff going into any off-site streams.
Yeah.
So you have to put a perimeter fence, that's a silt fence around the whole entire community. Then you have to protect your inlets with an actual filter bag. You put check dams in where your water runs off. So it slows down the water, it collects the silt. The silt collects, you have to get a back truck out to remove the silt, so it doesn't go into your pond and ultimately downstream to disturb fish.
That's what it means, yeah.
Yeah, so that's all. State of Ohio, Delaware County, will regulate that. The Ohio EPA comes out and makes visits, and then the Delaware Erosion Control also comes out and makes visits to ensure that we've already had our site walks, for the pre-development,
Mhm.
to make sure, you know what the requirements are, before you start development, and they have a checklist that we've gone through in order to get our building permits ultimately, so we've already done that part. We've already put our silt fence up, because we disturb the ground, and we protected any outlet that goes into the stream.
Okay, yeah. And then, I mean, I'm honestly, there is such a need for this because we don't have anything like this in the area. I didn't actually realize that Metro had one, right, in Berkshire, technically right across. But still, there's such a need for it with all of the businesses that are coming in. And I mean, those people don't want to sign a lease. Their companies don't want to sign a lease for them. A lot of them are individual contractors. When I worked in corporate America, I worked with a lot of consultants who, some of our consultants were with us for 3 years. I mean, they didn't want to be living in a hotel. They wanted something that felt a lot more like an apartment, but their companies were not going to sign apartment leases. So something like this is exactly what a lot of consultants need when they're in long-term projects. And that's really who you see, living in these, is people that really need that long-term, and this is not their real home. This is their Monday through Friday home, their Monday through Thursday home, and then they fly back and sometimes they'll stay over for a weekend. But then you also, obviously, we have a lot of people that are moving into the area with all of our new homes that are being built and in all these developments. You have people that are moving in that want to be here before they find a property, to find out for sure where they want to be, or their house, like we talked about, is in construction already. So I think that it very much fits what we set forth with the BCO. I am very comfortable with it, and I think it looks great.
Yeah, to share a little story, so out on the east side, there's Google.
Yes.
It's a big developer on the east side in Johnstown, New Albany area. So they've selected 10 of our units in one of our communities. In 10 of those units, they also put 10 electric cars. And they need 10 electric car chargers at the same location in the garages. So they want a garage for their employee, they provide an electric car for the employee, and provide an actual suite for their employee. So companies are looking like that scenarios to house their employees on a temporary basis. A lot of their, IT people and other services come from other locations, set up shop for a temporary standpoint, and then they fly back to their other corporate locations. So they need a long-term, but they stay at a place that's not just a hotel. I don't know if anybody's tried to find a hotel in certain areas for an extended period of time. I happened to work in Cleveland for a while. My company put me up for 30 days in a hotel. I was in 30 different hotels because I couldn't get more than one night stays because there's just not enough hotels either.
And that's the thing you want when you're in that type of a situation. You want to be able to unpack and feel like you're at home, even though obviously it's not your home, but you want to feel like you can settle in a little bit. And that's, regardless of how long you're staying, whether it is 30 days or, 6 months, you want to be able to feel like you have a place to go back to instead of continuously picking up and moving your things, so. Yeah,
We don't have bed bugs.
and we don't have that house. Yes, we don't have that house. Great. Jerry,
Is it my turn?
it's your turn.
You know, I agree with everybody said, you hit a sweet spot that I think the need is there, guys. I just have a couple, obviously the biggest thing I have is safety in the roads. We've talked about that, so I'm not gonna beat it to death, we don't have enough time. But 60 miles an hour is the speed limit out there. And anything that we could do to minimize that, like the right turn only. I hate making a left-hand turn out of Africa Road, obviously. And this, you had a neat little picture that showed 35 with an arrow on it. I thought they were really sneaky, because it isn't 35 right there, right in front of where the,
No, it actually is.
No, not there.
it says 35, I had an arrow key. It's still 60 where this drive was.
But the cops sit there all the time.
Well, they sit up at
They
the
sit up
carry
at
a
the church.
drive-through. The only thing is right there at 60 miles an hour until you get to 3B and K.
Which is really 65 or 70.
Well, yeah, I didn't say anybody drove the speed limit, but usually over. So that was my biggest concern when I went back to safety, moving speed, because I'm guilty of driving faster. But the facility itself, I have a couple comments, because we're here to recommend to the trustees that they approve it. We're not here to approve it. Where the pool is located, that just seems really can't you move it back into the community? Because it's right on 3637.
Well, there for two reasons. One is because the open space requirement of the overlay, we cannot put the structure in this area. So the open space requirement and the elimination of any type of structure takes away from that open space requirement. So that's
Not
one.
just flip buildings.
And the other item is the marketing window. You know, from a standpoint of the hotel lobby's here, right? Guest services is here, all the amenities here, and the oversight of the pool. So the hotel employees watch this location because, you know, inevitably there is people that come into these pools that are not guests. And it's an element of safety for our residents because you also have the drive-by traffic elements of people seeing it, which would include the police officers and deputy sheriffs and those kind of elements. So we try to put those in a safe area that our hotel employees can watch it closely because like I mentioned earlier, all that storefront is right there. So their office will face that pool, and that's what they look at to make sure that pool, not only for safety, not only for security, but also guest services. You know, they need something at the pool deck, you know, the chair broken or the umbrella's fallen over, or some kid had an accident, or, you know, you look at all those things that need the assistance of the hotel guests, they're right there and easily accessible. And then the restrooms. So all these amenities need restrooms, not only one restroom, they need both for male and female, so they need two restrooms in there. And then the other services that go along with the equipment for the pool itself. So it's those different elements that address that hotel lobby in the pool area. If we put it remotely, that creates a lot of management issues, and it creates a lot of other people using those facilities that are not guests. And you can lock the gate all you want, but someone's always walking into the pool and holding the gate for someone else behind them. I don't know if you guys were ever a kid, but some kids just jump fences in the evening. So there's that element there. We have a staff member that's on site 24/7. These have elements for security and or guest services. So there's all those elements that protect that.
Okay, so like Jasper, I have one more question and then one comment.
Okay.
The question, RPC comments, you read through them, and the first thing they hit on was the density of 10, and this is 20. Now, I understand it is a residential hotel and it has no restrictions, but the density Berlin Township has been with me for a long time, and it was difficult to get from R4 to R10. And we recently had to turn down a request for apartments at higher than the 10 density. So that's just, what did RPC, I mean,
We don't obviously agree with that. Now, I'm gonna speak, may not be the most flattering conversation I can have with you, but I think the system is flawed with RPC, and the simple matter is they do not, and will not meet with the applicant to discuss the application before the actual meeting. There's always some, description in the application. There's always some description in the building plans. There was always description in the site plans that can either confuse the staff at RPC, or it can create more questions that if we were allowed to have the staff report a week ahead of time, for instance, we could answer that question for the staff. I received that staff report driving and walking into the actual meeting. Clearly, R10 and R4 are permitted use in the Berlin Business Park. Commercial, which we file under, and for this particular development, there is not a residential density question. It's a commercial square footage, commercial setback, commercial open space requirements, commercial architectural elements that we meet. Now, if we were to say application under the other R4 and R10, I would agree with you. I mean, that's just, and Scott and I have had this discussion for 25 years. So it's just one of those elements that I don't like the process. I have to work with the process, but I think there's elements there that we can improve upon.
and both sides, Joe, because I'll make the comment now, and that was it.
Yeah.
I found out today at 11 o'clock that a letter was submitted by you all about this, that I haven't had a chance to review yet from the county, to the county prosecutor, I believe from you, Seth. Went to.
Now,
Yeah, it was these letters that were
Okay,
presented to you from
but we've
2020.
not seen this
Correct.
to be able to go into our conversation,
Well-
because we want what's best for the township.
I understand, but this letter was also given to regional planning.
And we,
So this information, again, the date on the letter given to us by Delaware County Prosecutor, February 11th, 2022.
I'm Mark Fowler,
And the date given to the county prosecutor's office is January 28th.
of the, a year ago,
2022.
yeah.
Steve Cutler gave the same information to regional plan to make sure.
Someone just got it today at the county prosecutor's
Well, he-
office, so I'm getting.
I understand, but Steve did a follow-up because
Okay.
Mark Fowler is no longer representative.
Correct, correct.
Or it's Tony.
Tony, yeah.
Yeah,
Tony,
so-
yeah.
So I'm just making a comment that communication is always gonna be an issue somewhere. I appreciate
Then we
it.
apologize because Steve was only doing a follow-up because we did the follow-up, we
Okay.
did the original
Right.
submission.
I appreciate it, but it was conveyed to try and understand the residential hotel criteria as opposed to the standard stuff of the R10 and what we've just been through in the last couple of months. And there's a lot of activity going on 36, 37 right now for all of Berlin Township. So with that, Tara, do you have
I
anything?
guess my only question, I think most of them were answered, but you had mentioned that on the other side of the new parkway was the ravines, and that's another apartment complex that's going in?
That's for
Just
Sunbury.
In Sunbury? So will that be fed to Waukegan schools?
It is, that was a discussion months ago before the overlay was approved. And, from a density perspective, it was moved over to, they requested to go to, they applied to go to Sunbury.
This is one of that density and this.
So
Same density.
one thing that happens with these
Well, this isn't a
developments.
density, but yes, yes.
So the Sunbury development, as part of Beach and Meadow Ridge, has been discussed with the school board, Mark Ray,
Yes,
all the different elements. The issue with this development is that, as we mentioned before, limited number of schools, limited number of active schools. But both these developments drive property taxes in extreme measures. This one in particular is millions of dollars a year that go to the schools. This one, a little bit less because of the numbers and the size of the development, but they're all property taxes that otherwise, if that was another type of development, would be different numbers, different impact, different. So they understand the financial application that these developments provide for the funding for schools. And, we worked with the schools as part of these developments and as other developments as well, just so they have that information. So I think they're looking at more elementary schools now, more middle schools, more additional high school. So, we're fortunate that Delaware County Multi School District is so popular, and so, such a great school system that's one of the best in the city and the state, so we're lucky to have it. So,
And just,
my children all went to Multi schools. I no longer have children in there, but I still pay the property taxes. So, do my part.
and just the comment I know that from attending the Parkway meetings, that between the Africa Road and the 3 Bs and a K, that's supposed to be 55 miles per hour, which I think is.
Yeah, so those access points that I mentioned are very limited.
Yeah.
So that apartment development has only RFET, I don't know if you remember that term, the old state 36, that's an RFET. So there's no left-hand turn in that location.
Well, they have the yellow cones if you go farther, that they can't do it. And they're always been over, so somebody would want.
Well, you're only gonna stop the law-abiding citizens from doing unlawful items. Now, for the criminal element or the other people, you're not gonna stop. Regardless, you can put a, 10-foot tall wall, and they're still gonna find it.
Okay.
Can I ask one question? The dates that you have on that right there, are those updated dates? The updated
Those are the
years?
most recent ones we had at the time, when we started these developments. Now, those are always gonna fluctuate.
I was gonna say, because I think they,
I don't think
yeah, I
that-
think they changed from the latest
And
one.
they have still moved between the 3, right? The 3
The green one's leading the way, right?
It's the same as it was before. It was,
Yeah.
Now,
It's never
that
changed,
process is
it was,
a mandated state process with the federal government, and how you get track funding. So they have to go through all those scenarios,
And it's already decided.
but it was decided years ago.
but we've discussed, like I said, we started these discussions years ago, working on different. They weren't gonna do the interchange until we brought the development.
Yeah,
So
but
they were
in 2016, it was decided.
They
which
were,
one of
they were
those
discussing
was.
this element
It was
years
interchange.
ago. This interchange was being discussed for years.
Yeah,
There was a developer that had a lot of options on a lot of ground in this area that was going to fund and pay for certain elements to start this process back in 2016. Well, that gentleman's no longer around, so now, 6 years later, we're around and, we have, the only time we don't do development is when we don't get the approval of the municipality. So if you give us our approval, we'll do development, just like the Sunbury gave us the approval to the south. And we worked, I won't say we didn't work with Berlin Township residents when we did that development. We held meetings with Berlin Township residents that are adjacent to us. I think Sherman Lakes development.
Parking Manor.
We worked, we worked with, who is now your township trustee, we worked with her as a liaison through those discussions. And that was over a number of months that we worked through that process. We moved around buildings, we moved around ponds, we added additional buffers to work with those residents. And we understand it's not Sunbury versus Berlin, we're all neighbors. And we all have to respect each other's privacy and people's property. And we're, I've talked to all these people in this vicinity around us, and they understand what we're building. We do work with those paving, so they're one of our contractors to do our paving, so she knows me personally for 20 years. And I've talked to I don't do business with K.O. Bain, because I'm in the building business. But the RCRB, the owners of that ground, who own that ground, that was the owners that sold us this ground, the Greer family. So it's, long tradition of working with these people. Now the RCRB, as you see through this map, won't be there in the future, unless they figure out a way to maybe build something over top of the parkway.
Camping world's taking over.
There's,
Nothing there yet. It's maybe
RCRB wants to move over here in this location. or Fort Wayne is gonna be extended. So, and I don't know, but they're also looking at, North Star location near Campbellville.
It's crazy.
So,
Can't win at one, go the other.
well, I think it's like any dealership, you always wanna be next to the auto dealership within the area that, is the busiest. You're gonna put your business next to them and drive up their traffic, but drive down your marketing costs. So when you look at any development, and there's multiple builders in a development, they all put their models next to my home. My home's the leading generator of traffic in central Ohio for homes, but not everybody wants to buy in my home. So they go to Rockford, and my home doesn't meet their criteria. So let MI do all the advertising to get people there.
Okay, let me ask, anybody in the audience have any comments?
I'm Ron Sabatino.
Ron?
My company's in the apartment business also. These guys did not pay me to come and say this, but I support, I think it's a nice looking project. I think that, their apartment units or hotel suites, whatever you want to call them, are smaller than your code permits. But that doesn't mean these guys are wrong. I think their code is wrong and outdated, because everybody's building apartments the size of what they're suggesting. I did look at the regional planning comment about 10 units the acre. I have two things to say about that. First, regional tells me they've recommended to you all and to the trustees for some time, in particular with your open space that you already have, that assessing a penalty of 15% for net density is inappropriate. They told me they've recommended that to Berlin to get rid of that 15%. So in most places, we tell the truth, where you have R10, 10 means 10 units the acre. Here, 10 means 8.5 units the acre. Now, in the commercial, 10 units the acre probably is 10 units the acre, 10 units the acre, because you don't have probably the 15% takeaway. The second point I have is I disagree with his comment. Most apartment communities today are built as these guys have, at 20 units the acre. So whether that's interpreted in your code or the way you look at it, irrespective of code or irrespective of whether you call it a suite or hotel apartment, it quacks like a duck. Is that 20 units the right number, or is it until you choose to get rid of the 15% penalty, is it 17 units the acre? I think he deserves the higher. So that's my comment. I think it's a good project. I think it's a good looking project, and frankly, surprised me that it looks that big. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks, Ron. Good night. Jay, do you have anything? Okay, it's up to you gentlemen at this point. I know ours is, again, we can, basically recommend, do a motion to recommend, or we can wait to hear from the county prosecutor on their final word from what just happened
Well,
today.
I understand what Mr. Tucker did. However, we've already vetted that process with the county prosecutor back in January of 2022. Now, you may argue that you just got another update,
And
but
it
we
is
still
not-
meet that criteria.
Yeah, it's not an argument, it's a discussion,
Yeah.
Joe, that what I'm trying to do is.
I'm saying he's not gonna make, he can't make any other decision other than what was already displayed. Are they gonna go back on the letter that the county prosecutor?
But Jerry's
Well,
saying he hasn't seen it, so no one's gonna approve it.
Right,
And then
we
you only
don't,
get pumped out again.
we didn't see this letter before, and I don't work with.
So if I was provided,
The information that we have in here, I can't include that letter that you just did for, and I just have to wait for.
well, can you make that a condition of your approval tonight? If that letter says no, then it's not approval. If it says yes, it's an approval.
Guys,
I mean,
I think I'd leave it up to the trustees. but
Okay,
Yeah,
but what do we can take a vote on it, let the board hear.
I'm not trying to pressure you guys.
No, Joe.
As I mentioned before, we've spent a lot of money with this process, which we don't normally do before we come before you guys. As you know, we don't normally have our final engineering when we come in front of the
Right.
commission. And we wait to have your decision before we spend the millions of dollars on the other items. So I've spent over $750,000 to date on all these other approvals. So I'm not saying that I don't mind giving you an extended amount of time, just, I'd like to see some daylight.
And we're trying to do that, is what I was saying, asking you whether you wanted to have tonight a vote taken, or,
Well, I'm asking you, is it change the vote if you have time?
well, okay. You said, yeah. It's trying to understand, because I didn't know that the R10 didn't mean anything in this. And so if, in fact, the county prosecutor comes back and says, based on how you guys submitted the request, which is new as of 2 weeks ago, part of it with additional documents tonight, I just wanted to be fair, because quite honestly, I'm concerned about 219 spots and there's 138 times 2 is 260. Something doesn't add up, and the traffic are my two biggest concerns now. Density went away with this, but there's still two there, gentlemen, that if I'm given a vote, it's not real positive right now is all I'm getting at, and it could change tomorrow.
Understand.
So I'm asking.
We'll table it then, and wait for your guys, the prosecutor's office, that we should have acted a lot sooner, like months ago, I guess. So we
Well, a lot
apologize
happened.
for lack of communication.
And I want to make sure everybody, is that okay with everybody? Table it until we hear what the county prosecutor has to say.
from my point of view, everything is met.
Okay?
So one
So-
thing that, I hate to interrupt you. I
No, it's
apologize.
okay, go ahead.
So Todd did underline one item on this letter. And I guess we were naive enough to think they would follow through. But it does say, in the letter itself, I will, however, let them know our correspondence, and this is supposed to be addressed to Berlin Township back in February 11th, 2022.
If they did, I don't remember, I'm sorry. Yeah, we've not seen anything.
As Chairman, if I may, just for clarity, I reached out to Tony just because I knew this question would come up tonight. And I know Tony's new. He's not part of what you have. The township lawyers from the prosecutor's office are not included in the RPC process. So I knew that if this question came up tonight, I wanted to give him a heads up. So rather than go back and forth for the, legal law review, back and forth with Tim, I just wanted to give him a heads up. So Melissa Schiffel is still the
Yeah,
county
this is still the
prosecutor.
county prosecutor. He works for her.
So that, I was trying to, maybe Mike,
Due
Joe will
diligence.
probably fire me,
No.
but I probably over communicated. I guess maybe is the problem, right? I reached out to him just to give him a heads up. Now, he called me and says he wasn't gonna be here for your meeting tonight.
Yeah, he had another commitment. I asked him to attend, so
But
the question.
for fairness, we'll table it
Yeah.
and come back after you guys had opportunity to talk to Tony.
In the next meeting, we have Kathy is the one who would schedule the next one, but it
I'll bring Douglas to her tomorrow.
Okay,
We'll get it on the
that
agenda.
might get the meeting done earlier, to schedule time certain.
I just,
Rush job.
I'll be here too. Cake does.
The one sentence for me that created chaos, I guess, is, and this is from our speech, okay, is density residential is allowed in this sub-area in many formats qualifying as commercial/residential. That's the part where and I realize you're asking for commercial, not residential. However, it's a residential hotel, so that's murky. And I get that it's not. You guys
It's in the law. I mean, it's in the law.
I know.
It's a law.
I read the law. I read the law. I get it. But I think when that said residential, but you're doing commercial, you guys have done this before, okay? This is a little, new, guys. And Scott or whoever did construct this letter did say qualifying as commercial / residential. I mean, they mushed those together, which
We
maybe they
had the
should.
same discussion with him in Berkshire Township. Yes. We had the same come to Jesus meeting with the county prosecutor and Scott at RPC in the same conversation. So we vetted this issue before.
Right?
He, however, has an action drawing, and I'll tell it to his face, so I'm not hiding anything. It's just an issue that, we follow the law to the T, we followed your code to the T, we've met every requirement in your overlay for that reason.
Right.
Because we're not going to put this up to the standard of variances, because we know that comes with different oversight.
Sure.
And also the cloud itself says you're not supposed to have any variances. I mean, that's
I
what
understand.
15 and 19 were written to do that as a
Understand.
cloud, to make this process quicker. So let me say one last thing now. Jasper brought up a good point. In the book itself, it says that we can deny it, all of us, and it still goes to the trustees for their.
No, I don't want to do that.
Okay, well, that's, I just want to make sure you
I'm
know.
here to work with you
Joe,
guys.
I do understand, and we are too.
You all.
You all. Yeah,
But
okay.
it's not my, business model to upset anybody and not work through, because as you know,
Yes,
we've worked through other items in the
a
past.
few years, yes.
We understand that you guys had a concern when we try to zone something different, and you guys had that opportunity to review it. So that's all. I'll take the time.
Okay,
So,
all
There
right.
might be someone else in the seat, but.
So.
Oh, not Trey. I just don't like that.
My replacement.
Can I just bring up this point? On the first page, on February 11th, 2022, it calls out, I'm just gonna read this whole thing, okay? As you point out, Berlin Township zoning resolution, section 15.03 includes hotels as permitted use in the PCO. As you further point out, the Ohio Revised Code includes residential hotel under its definition of a hotel. If the proposed hotel is developed as you described, i.e. meeting all the parameters and legal requirements of a residential hotel, it appears that such a project would be a permitted use in the DCO. Isn't that our answer?
Well, and I would say it's a permitted use, but where it got murky for me, and I think I'm over it, okay, is the density for residential. And I realize
That there's no residential.
through discussion,
commercial.
yes, we're not asking for residential zoning, I get it. But I think that's kind of where it tripped me up personally, is.
And me too, it says North Point Residential.
But that's the type of hotel.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But it does lead to confusion.
Like, if it were to say as a commercial use in the BCO.
But that's the way that the Ohio Revised Code
Yeah,
calls it out
so the
is
code is clear on the actual.
residential.
Yeah.
Residential portion, because if we call it a hotel, a transient user can
Specify
stop
the type.
in and can,
Yes.
request to have a space to suite for the evening.
Same with
Wait.
extended stay hotels.
That's
There's the three types, the transient, the extended, and then the
residential. Yeah, so that's the actual standard of law, is the determination.
Like I said, you guys have done it before. I apologize for
I
being
know, it's
confused, but
fine.
I was confused.
Whatever you guys need.
I think I'm not anymore, but I might be.
You're not confused?
Well, I could use.
No, I mean, the Ohio Revised Code calls
Okay.
out 3 types of hotels.
Right.
This is not a residential unit, this is a commercial unit. There's transient, there's extended stay, and there's something called a residential hotel. Don't let that word residential, think of it as long stay
Yeah.
hotel. Long stay hotel.
I mean, I get it, I get it.
Yeah, but I'm saying for Jerry, if that word residential kind of messes you up.
Yeah, I read it, I'm sorry.
No, it just, it's the 3 different ways that Ohio Revised Code calls it out.
And it's just sometimes new things takes a while to sink in.
Sure.
So, okay, we can, I can make a motion See if somebody
It
wants.
just doesn't seem fair to hold up a process, you know what I mean, to have them come back and get back on the, I don't know where we are in meetings for what's scheduled
August the
out.
22nd is what we're out to now.
See, and that just
That's-
seems,
That's a month and a half.
yeah, that
Um,
if they're gonna move forward regardless of whether we say yes or no, it's like, why make them wait another month and a half?
Okay, how about, would you like to make a motion then?
Sure, I make a motion to, how do I do this? I make a motion to recommend, I make a motion to recommend,
EBP
yeah,
23-00.
I make a motion to recommend the Board of Township Trustees on the application and development plan. BBP 23-0025 by Metro Development. Do I need to say the rest of it?
No.
Did you say recommend approval?
Recommend approval. Is there a second?
Oh, I can second. Sorry.
I wasn't sure you were done. Okay,
Would you take this?
sure. Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. D. Christopher,
Yes.
Mr. Gosha,
No.
Ms. Kaplan?
No.
Mr. Valentine?
No.
Okay.
Basically, it's going to the trustees for their next meeting with the comments and everything that's been said. That our no doesn't mean it's not approved, it just means that we have some concerns.
Questions?
Mine is safety, and we can't use that, just like we can't use residential because it says residential hotel. So I don't know what we can use, but
It just, that's why I wanted to recommend it, is because to have a month and a half to eat up the process where it's going to move forward anyway, it just seems
we
like
don't, yeah,
it
it's
it
not.
doesn't make sense. Because it's going to move forward anyway, so the next meeting will be 2 months from now.
And that's when the rubber's gonna hit the road with all that community.
And I think it does, I mean, when I look at the way that.
I'm not as quick to determine that, and that's why they come and prosecute.
It was different, so the thing is it was different with some of the other ones that they came back to us, right? That we said, all right, we understand this is where you're at, but we would like to see these things change, and they said, okay, let's do it. But
And this was no changes because they have everything already
Simply-
planned, and they planned very well.
And it's simply questions that we have,
Right,
right? So it's not that it hasn't met the criteria, it's questions that you have.
and questions about, like, the location of the pool, the number of parking places, and the safety are things that the trustees can decide that. Because
Exactly,
they're the ones that
Yes.
approve or deny.
yes,
We're,
yeah.
we're here to, my heart said, there's some problems. I like everything here, but I would have loved for it to be out to Africa Road and not to 3637. If you could have had that, because that solves a lot of my.
Yeah, I've asked and was denied.
I understand, Joe, and let me think, I said, well, what if I wanna go get a 6-pack of Pepsi over at the carryout across the street? How the heck am I gonna get there? I have to go all the way up to the light at North Point, go across the street and back down, or I can try driving and figure out how to get back into this place afterwards. Yeah, we got to the moon, we got J-hooks, we got all kinds of things up there, guys. So
Yeah, you know,
you've done a good job.
I appreciate it. I hope, we would have better results. And I thought we've done our homework and
Yes.
presented it in such a manner.
Yeah.
We'll obviously have the discussions with trustees, and, they obviously will have probably comments of their own.
Yes.
I understand that.
Thanks,
So,
Joe.
Trustee Real had the same questions
Oh, okay.
at the RPC meeting. She was in attendance asking questions about the use, the type of use, and we answered those questions for her. So unfortunately, we missed the ball on some answers and do better next time.
I would just say, and for their benefit also, they need a 2-week window for all of their documentation, so they have time to review it before whatever your meeting is set.
Well, next time, we won't reach out to the.
There's extra copies for the
Yeah,
trustees.
So-
What do you do?
Yeah, just shut up.
You know, even
Sorry
if,
for.
If you can provide the trustees with
We'll put it on
the
record.
extras, yeah. That way, if the question comes up, it's already there, you don't have to be like, well, we have a document somewhere. But they do, same thing, they need everything 2 weeks, they prefer to take 2 weeks out. So.
Okay, I have one other, eject for the, I met right before this meeting, Megan, as well as, we met earlier today, Kathy. And we came up there, and I want to let everybody on the, commission, we came up with, this is our master document. And you're gonna see some comments on a lot of pages. Some of them are, like Angela gave us some stuff that I cut and, actually Drew did cut. I stapled, I didn't cut and paste, but all were there. And then I met after Kathy and we did the whole document of all the changes to all of us. And she wanted to thank everybody too for the effort and work that went into creating this document. Is all the changes she finally made. The next step is to Scott Chambers to present to him, because he's the one that authors the final document. You guys can review it, and this is the only one I got, and like I said, I got every page that has a change on it, highlighted, and what it does make bits, we have to find out, and Scott, he's the one that has to answer several of those. The one big thing that was asked by everybody is making sure that the captions know what those pictures were and where they came from. And
Yeah,
the currency of the data.
Yes.
So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna meet with Kathy tomorrow to make sure that I've got everything done, and then try and set up something with Scott. Hope everybody can.
Get this moving forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
It's a long
close.
time.
It's only been 3.5 years. With that, Jake, do you have anything?
Nothing for you. One guy who wrote it.
Oh, yeah.
Anything? July 11th will be the ARB for
Yeah, that says it's informal. John Robertson and Amy Jett, it's Silent Gardens. Is that?
that one is informal.
It says July.
Yeah, that one's an informal.
Which is the other thing?
Is that these gates
Yeah,
on?
is it that same day?
This one says the next scheduled
I might
meeting
have that backwards, it might
is
be.
July 11th. And it says John Robertson and Amy Dutt, Silent Gardens.
Yeah, the ARB might be on the top. I don't think they're on the same day.
On the
They all be whatever
25th.
year, but same day.
On the 25th.
No, the ARB.
Oh, there.
Yeah, I was just saying that one, the next one coming through the ARB.
Okay, to the ARB.
It might be the 12th.
Good night. Thank you.
I have to check my calendar.
You all.
Yeah, other than that, it's just an informal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
All right. The nursing home, the nursing home rehabilitation center. Where was that? Can you remind me, where was that going? What parcel was that going on?
Across from the Shire, on the other side of Cheshire Road.
No.
That's going up on
Already
36, 37, yeah. 36.
Thank you.
So what is
Because for, in my mind, it was going on this parcel. I'm like, what just,
Where did it go?
where did it?
Yeah, it's way up this way,
Okay, it's
as
further up.
opposed to on the other
36,
side.
37.
Yeah.
Okay,
On the
This
north
is on the other
side.
side of Bottom Creek.
Okay,
So that's-
thank you.
I just remember the one.
I was like, I swear.
No,
It's right here, yes. And that's why I was thinking, I'm like,
Real nice.
Yeah, and what's confusing about this particular
Senior home, so.
They can't be sleeping right now, Sunbury, and- because the property right behind the
Yes.
Metro Homes
Oh, I
is
know.
Sunbury, is Sunbury.
Yeah.
So this was, well, I'm sorry,
No, what I mean though is, that was brought up, and I'm like,
what is,
I think.
Well, I don't think they
He
wanna
said,
pay-
well, do you wanna just annex this?
They don't wanna pay the extra fees for that first 6.9.
and those people
Well,
that are
no.
in there would have to pay income tax, because it's
Exactly,
Sunbury.
so, and we did work very hard with them. I understand both sides of it, with why they ended up going to Sunbury, they have a huge parkway that's going through the middle, they are.
Oh, yeah,
There's ravines that are running through the middle, there's a lot that is inhibiting that land from being developed. So I totally get why they made the decision that they did, it stinks for Berlin Township, because it's, but I won't go any further.
Yeah, they're gonna,
But-
they'll flag full annex if it gets turned down, and so the town needs to stop that.
But thank you, that, because I could not remember the parcel.
Are we gonna adjourn the meeting
Yeah.
before we?
Yeah,
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Did I-
Okay, that was an
You-